start the podcast. Okay,
Okay,
we're live
let's
and
do
here
it.
we go. Okay. Ron, thanks for coming on the show and talking to us, sir.
Well, thank you, Todd. I appreciate being invited.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking the
That's what
time.
I like to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're excited.
we really appreciate it very much to have you on and talk about things with you today. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Um, Ron, you're most famous for, of course, what people know is the Sierra sounds that you recorded back in the 1970s, I believe, in California. But you've been a researcher for years. You've been on every documentary out there that I've seen. You're on a lot of Bigfoot shows out there. You just did Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, a couple episodes on there that I watched. You've written a couple books. So much to talk about with you today. I don't know where to start. But I guess let's touch base real quick on the Sierra sounds and talk about that for a minute, if that's all right with you.
Sure. Anything. Ask me anything. I don't care.
So this happened in the early 70s when you guys recorded these sounds, right? You were going up to a camp in the Sierra mountain range, I guess, is what was going on. Back then, I mean, you guys were just up there hunting, right? Is that what was going on pretty
That's the
much?
hunting. Yeah, it was hunting camp since '58 when the Johnsons started going up there.
Okay. And you got involved and we're going up there. What was it about that area that you know, I mean, did you guys hear stuff before you recorded these sounds? Were things going on with these creatures? Did you guys see something? What was the prelude to this?
Well, the prelude was the Johnson brothers, and like I say, since '58, and they're older than me. In fact, I don't know if they're living or not. One of them I know has passed away. But it was '71 when they heard something outside the shelter, and it wasn't a bear. And they're avid hunters. I mean, these guys can shoot a gnat when it's flying around, you know. Just, so it's a hunting camp, and it always had been. Things that may have happened in the past prior to that might have been Bigfoot things, but they wasn't looking for Bigfoot. It wasn't on the radar. They're just hunters, and they didn't even know about that. So I didn't go up there till '71 when one of the guys, after the Johnsons came out and told them what went on, the sounds and things. And they seen this big track, and they realized something really unique is going on up there. So anyway, the hunters, all of them went back. I wasn't part of the group at the time. I was just friends with them all. And really, one of the guys got scared off. He heard the sounds. Pretty aggressive to start with. Really, you've heard them, I think. A lot of people have. And that frightened him. He was very religious. He didn't know where to put that in his paradigm. And he just, the wives were worried. The guys hadn't came out when they were supposed to. And that guy ran out the next morning after the sounds and left a note for the other guys. They said, well, you got to go back and see if these guys are all right. They don't know. They just knew there was a monster up there of some kind. They didn't know. Still know why I was looking for Bigfoot other than had a Bigfoot, you know. And so he wouldn't go back by himself. He asked me if I'd join him, and I gladly did. I didn't know. It was exciting to me. And that's how I got involved in the group in '71. So that was the first time I heard sounds and saw the huge tracks that they were making, prints. And so that's the Sierra sounds. And we start with 1972 is when we got a hold of Al Berry via Peter Byrne via Ivan Sanderson to go up there and investigate and look around and try to see what's going on. 8 miles in the wilderness, 8,400 feet elevation, very imposing area to get to. And I might say it's been an exciting time. We started recording the things, and Al Berry started recording the things in '72, and he's the one that really fostered the sounds. He was a master in science. He was nobody's a fool. I guarantee you that. He was looking for a hoax, which we didn't know at the time, but he got the sound study at the University of Wyoming for a year, showing that they were real, that they were not 60-cycle hum in them, which was shown pre-recording, re-recording. There was no change in the speed alterations of the sounds. And that was Professor Curlin at the University of Wyoming. And so that was a big hurdle. That was published in 1978, actually. And he actually, it was in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, his whole report. That was a big thing, but still academia said, well, something's messing around here. But he showed where the sounds were inside, outside, below, above, everywhere, within the human range, outside the human range, just incredible. So he showed that in a graph, and he was a professor. He's written over 100 professional papers. I mean, the guy's top notch. And yet academia still hadn't grabbed a hold of it. As far as these things can't talk, they got to be a primate that doesn't fall into Darwin's evolution or nothing like that. So anyway, that started me off on my studies of this thing, where giants come from. I was an elder, and I was a board member of a mega church at the time. Me and my friend Bill, we were both packers. So him and I started packing things in and out on our mules and horses and supplies. And so when you did get up there, you could walk up there and have your stuff there. We put barrels there. It was fun. A good time in my life. I've had a pretty adventurous life, really.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
So when you guys were recording those sounds in the 70s, that was kind of right after the Patterson film came out and all the footprints being found back before that from Jerry Crew and all that. What was your thoughts on the Patterson film, and what was your thoughts on Bigfoot in general before you even were going to the camp, or before you heard the sounds?
Really, I didn't have thoughts about Bigfoot. I knew about the Patterson film because I was raised in Humboldt County up there where Bluff Creek is, but
Okay.
I didn't think about it. The newspaper says just a large Indian out on the run or something like that. So, you kind of, but I did, after we encountered these things ourselves up there, I went and saw the Patterson film. It was in the theaters at the time, and that's intriguing, And I've known Bob now for years. Bob came by and seen me in 1978, I think it was, on his way.
Bob Giblin, yep.
Yeah, Bob Gimlin.
Wow, cool.
So I've known him, and I think he's a upright person. He was there, and it happened.
Yeah.
So anyway, I believe the film is real. There may have been an effort on Patterson's part to hoax something, but he didn't, because he was trying to make a film. And the guy it gets into a whole nother story, a whole nother ball game there. But there's a lot of controversy about that film, only because it's not the original film. It's second run. Everything's second run.
Right.
So and they think it's been edited. Some people do, but even if it has, it's still been a lot of forensic studies on that by people who know how, and that's a. So anyway, Patterson film, it was interesting then, after we encountered this phenomenon up there ourselves. But we still always were looking for the ape that was running out there in the woods. That's what everybody's looking for, the ape in the woods.
Right.
But the things we're dealing with up there didn't fit in with an ape in the woods. Just strange stuff.
Yeah.
Out there, he started experiencing a few things, and he said, "Don't talk about this stuff." He said, "Don't talk about this stuff, or you get kicked off." So we didn't for a long time, but I do now, because I started studying into the science. Like I say, he had a master's degree in science, so I thought, well, there must be a science behind this, some kind of a law that governs all this strange stuff, the lights, the phenomena, the sounds that were way out of the box, and metallic sounds, just strange stuff, and that got me all over the place, all over the world, really. I've been in South America looking at the couple times, studying the elongated skulls and the megalithic structures, and been in Nepal, been in Peru, Bolivia, and just studying. And I got into quantum physics because, again, there has to be a law, a rule, or something that governs things. And I figure, this fits. It fits with everything ancient text was talking about. It fits with what I've seen. It fits with stuff. It's the stuff you realize that everything is at its minute level. Most minute level, just energy, vibrating at frequency. It's energy, frequency, and vibration. And you get into that study and then start looking into it. And I mean, that works. They say, well, it's only in the micro world. That's BS. It works throughout the universe. And I say BS. And I got a professor behind me on that one. He physics. At Texas A&M Blair. It's Christopher Blair. He's a professor of physics there, and he says everything works from the cell to the stars, and with the laws of quantum physics. So anyway, these people that say, well, it only works in the micro world, that's only because you don't see it in the physical three-dimensional environment that we're at. But everything really starts with the brain, and then you got to get into it. Gets me into consciousness, telepathy, anything. How does anything work? That's where people are reporting, and now people are reporting that stuff just right and left all over the place, and really hooking into my theories because it fits with a lot of religions, not a lot of religions, but it fits with what some of the masters of these religions were saying. The interpretations, not so much it's in question, arguably, but So I think whatever government's in charge of the population is going to control the narrative, and that's what's happening to us today.
Yeah,
And that's one reason
unfortunately.
we don't. Yes, unfortunately, but they have to give up sooner or later with the truth, and that's how Roswell came out, 1947. Finally, come out. Okay, it wasn't a weather balloon; it was UFOs, and there was aliens there. So,
Right. Yeah, we're seeing that a lot right now with
you
the
see,
alien
wife
stuff
was out
coming
looking
out.
at the stars early this morning with the dogs, and she thought she seen a UFO.
Wow.
You don't know. You
Yeah.
see this light slowly moving along not far from you, and yet, I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe somebody's got a drone out there. But who knows? I just believe since my trips down to South America and different places and seeing the megalithic structures and different things, I know aliens are different things with a higher technology anyway have been on this planet. And where they got that technology is all in ancient texts if you want to start researching that stuff. And
Mhm.
that's what I've done. So,
Yeah, Brian and I have gotten your book, your recent book, The Quantum Bigfoot. We started reading that. Sorry we
Yeah.
didn't get through it before we talked to you. You go pretty deep in some of this stuff. You've definitely done your homework, Ron. You've investigated a lot. It's obvious through the years. I didn't know where to start. We don't know where to start with these questions and whatnot. Before we get into the quantum part of it, how many interactions did you end up having up there at that camp after you recorded
my.
the? Was there a lot of good stuff
Yeah,
going on?
I didn't count. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of it going on. I mean, we did this for years up there, and that's what was hard for people to believe is how could something like that happen over and over. If you're lucky, you get a glimpse of one of these things in your lifetime, and that's only a few people that have that happen. But to
Right.
have a steady encounters or repeated encounters, it's like getting hit by lightning twice, according to one researcher I know, i.e. Peter Byrne.
Okay.
But he believes me. He believes, he's been to the camp. I took him to the camp and years ago. And he's still setting out trail camps. I just talked to him yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
He's 95
Oh,
years
okay.
old, and he's out there setting out trail camp, which is
Is
okay.
he
Maybe get
Oh,
lucky.
yeah.
he's still going back to that camp, you said?
No, he don't go back to camp. He
Okay.
can't. He couldn't find it anyway. I mean,
Okay.
don't think I had to lead him either. In
How
fact,
long
I
has it
believe.
been? Do you still go back at all, or?
I went back in 2018 with David Paulides for the filming of the 411, the missing, the
Oh,
hunters.
cool.
Okay, I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah, I got a
good show.
15-minute section in there, and he interviewed me at the camp. And he's the only one I've ever taken up there. I had a lot of people wanting to do this, to go up there and
Sure.
film or just to go. And I won't take people because I don't want it exposed to.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of remote. It's
That's
remote anyway.
understandable,
It's
yeah.
remote. People don't have any idea. I mean, you got to be a pretty good outdoorsman or have a pretty good mule to ride up there.
Gotcha.
And know where it's at, because I could tell you where it's at, and you'd never find it unless you had the
Yeah.
longitude and latitude.
Right. How far away from these creatures do you think you guys were when you were recording these sounds?
Within feet. We were inside the shelter most of the time.
Okay.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 74 till they started interacting with me and my friend Bill outside the shelter. And I pulled out my little cassette recorder out of my saddlebag and started recording them. And that's the sounds I use for my second CD, Voices of Bigfoot Sounds, number 2.
Okay.
And but yeah, prior to that, they were right outside the shelter. You could hear them walking around, and you couldn't see anything, but you could hear them, and they started mouthing off. Al Berry had his microphone remoted away from the shelter a little ways, and he got some real clear sounds. That's the ones that he had analyzed at the University of Wyoming.
Okay.
Then it wasn't until 2008 till a cryptolinguist from the Navy got a hold of it, Scott Nelson, and he was trained to transcribe languages to see if it is a language by the human definition of language, which means sapient talk, like we're talking now, where you can actually think about what you're seeing and talk about it to another person. And these things have that, and that's what really threw the curveball, because they're not supposed to be able to talk either, right? They're still an ape in the woods, right?
Right.
They're more than an ape in the woods, and they have intuitiveness like you wouldn't believe, and it's like you can't trick them. I mean, we tried so many times to trick them. Everybody thinks, why didn't you get a picture? Why didn't you get a picture? Well, anybody out there trying to get a picture knows what I'm talking about. I mean, I've had people say, oh, I saw one. I started running away, had the camera right in his hands. They don't think about that. They get their ass out there.
Yeah.
You could.
If
So
if
anyway,
I had an encounter and if I had a choice of looking at it for a few seconds or trying to fumble with my phone and not seeing it, I'd just look at it and be like, okay, there, I don't need to take a picture. I saw what I saw with my own eyes,
well, it's just everybody wants to see a picture, That's just
right.
it's Patterson film, and
True.
this Alaska killer Bigfoot I was on just a few months ago up there in Portlock.
Mhm.
Those guys, they cut out what they don't want anybody to hear, and
See, that's what that was what going to be one of my questions for you is
you know how it works.
how much of you did they edit?
Well, quite a bit. I was there for a couple
Mm,
of days, and
yeah.
but that's them. I knew they'd do that, so I was trying to be careful what I say, but they can still take part of your sentence. But really, they do have something going on up there. These guys, in my
Do they?
opinion, yes, that's
Uh-huh.
yes, and I know some other things going on not far from them that's happened too. So that they didn't know about, but I didn't talk about that. Uh, but yeah, when they do those things, they do it for a purpose to try to get the demographic to watch it that they think is going to watch it. And
Yeah. See, that's what I
but
was
like those
thinking.
guys, I tell you what, I try to tell them you're not going to have anything happen up here. These cameramen around and you just walk around with a gun. If you was to see something 10 foot tall up here, you'd shoot at it. I guarantee you that's what I didn't say that, but that's what they would have done.
Right.
They're all freaked out up there, and because there is something going on. The history there is not questionable because it's just what did it is the question, and that the signs I seen and things I seen and just all that went on in the history all kind of points towards there's something going on there.
Wow.
So that was fun. I can say that they paid my way and nice helicopter ride. I guarantee you that.
Yeah,
It
well,
was
Yeah.
it's beautiful up there.
oh
That
gorgeous.
country is
Well, if you're
amazing.
there when the sun's shining,
All
and I
right.
was
Yeah.
cold.
It looked a little cold when you were there.
It was cold. Mhm.
So after the Sierra Sounds and all that, you got big into the Bigfoot world, the Bigfoot genre, studying what these things were, devoted your life to research. You're one of the most, when we talk about Bigfoot or the Bigfoot name or Sasquatch comes out, your name is one of the top names that come out there for
Mhm.
today and for a long time with all the other guys. Um, you've also written a couple books. You wrote Voices in the Wilderness, and I think that kind of describes your interactions with what was going on at the camp. Is that right?
That was my chronicle. Really, I was doing this for I think it's 40 some odd years then. That's over 50 years now. But yeah, and I have the download for the links for the sound. So when you get to the context of the sound I'm talking about, but it talks about everything we went through, the camp getting there and just stuff like that, and
Mhm.
a little bit of history in what I've been doing since, but mostly that. And you can hear, I think I got 24 sound bites in there that you can listen to.
Okay.
That I record. It's based on my pretty much 1974 trip because Al Berry encouraged me to write that. I just kind of sitting on it, not doing anything. But
Mhm.
he said, "You ought to write your story." So I wrote my book, and
Oh, yeah.
And then you got into more depth of this, and you wrote the Quantum Bigfoot,
here we
which
go.
we've been reading. We've been reading this.
Mhm.
I've been trying to comprehend a lot of it, Ron.
Yeah.
You definitely know your stuff when it comes to this. You've done your background or taken your courses or what have you. Why don't we just get into that and talk about it? What made you gear toward that realm of side of things? I guess in the understanding of how these things exist, I'm sure, but what kind of pulled you toward the quantum side and made you want to write this book?
The science. You got to stay with science, and this is science. It's fact. It's not. They call it theory because you can't see it in our dimension. You have
Mhm.
to prove it mathematically, and it's all been proven. I mean, Max Planck, 1918, won a Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and it just, yeah. I mean, it's the law. It's what Einstein studied. It's what Tesla worked with. It's what all those old physicists. And you get into what they say about it, and it's the woo. So people can call it the woo-woo camp if you want to, but it puts me right in the camp with those guys, and I don't mind that at all.
Mhm.
But a lot of people still want to believe all that out there is what they can see, feel, and touch with their five senses. And that's what we've been taught by Newtonian physics, because that's all we can see, right?
Right. Yeah,
Right.
we
But
only
there's
know
more.
we only know what we know, right?
Yeah, right. Your brain
Yeah.
fills in the blanks if you if you don't have it already. But yeah, you get into studying that stuff, and it's only a little over 100 years old, and yet most people still want to live in Newtonian physics exclusively. And actually, who was that? Edgar Mitchell said it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. So that's a pretty good statement. He knew. Those guys know. Anybody who looks into this will realize there's just so much more going on. Physics, quantum physics says there's 11 dimensions that's been established mathematically, and we only live in 3. There's other things out there. And when you are a religious person, you think you're going to die and go to heaven, but according to physics, nothing dies. Energy can't die because that's what we are. And it can't die, and so it just changes form, according to Einstein. If you're religious, you're going to say you go to heaven. If you're a physicist, you're going to change into another dimension, change forms. So what form that is, even Einstein wouldn't guess. But that's spooky, actually, at a distance.
Yeah, it
And
is.
he just, yeah, so I really started getting into that probably close to 15 years ago now. And I wrote that book, Quantum Bigfoot, a couple years ago. And it's been selling a lot. It's been really good for me. And when I say good for me, I want this to get out because I think if anybody researches this, they're going to fall into that woo-woo camp. I think
Right.
it's not woo-woo if it fits, and this fits. And I mean, it fits with things Jesus Christ said. It fits with so many ancient texts. And I was raised in a church. I got to tell you, I was religious, but I'm not religious anymore. I just don't go along with the narratives a lot of religions teach. But we're all spiritual beings, whether you like it or not. We all have a consciousness. What gave us that consciousness is subject to debate, I
Right.
guess.
It's up for debate.
Yeah, but I think the DNA of primates have been changed, and we're primates, and these things are primates too. This Bigfoot people. I gotta say right up front, though, I don't think they're all the same. And now that I really do believe that aliens exist, and I think just about everybody here believes aliens exist, these things are an alien of nature. Something has created them, and something has created us, and different higher technology entities have messed with the DNA, manipulated DNA of different species on this earth. In my opinion, is they want to acclimate their species to this earth. So you can look at all kinds of strange things, and
Right.
I don't discard anything anymore, hardly, because everything's possible. We create things with our head. Science now is looking into how we think we're creating things with our mind, but no, we're not. I mean, with our hands, but they get into studying consciousness now and how things really work and how consciousness doesn't die. That's the energy we are. It just transforms. So we can make things happen with that if we learn how to get our coherence right with our rhythm in our bodies. And get your heart, because your heart has a brain too. I mean, they're finding now it's got 40,000 or something like that, things that your brain has too. In other words, it can tell you things. So that's a gut feeling you get sometimes when you go in, okay, something's
Right.
Aunt Mary's fixing to call me. Okay. You look at
Right.
the phone rings, it's Aunt Mary. Well,
Yeah.
that's stuff your heart knows everything. And you get information through your pineal gland. And if you can direct that through your body and get your heart, but your heart's got to get in coherence with your brain. And when your brain and your heart are at one, that's the oneness that you can have, then you're gonna know what to do, and you're gonna see things, you're gonna know things, you're gonna be have more intuitiveness, a lot of things like that. We have to just learn how to work that and how to make that happen. And do it through meditation and through cleaning up your pineal gland.
Yeah, there's a lot there to the spiritual thing and the mental side of things I've been reading lately, and I think Brian has too. We've been into this thing about listening to, how your mind can control so much more than physical things, or you can want something or wish for something, and your mind has so much more power on a non-physical realm, I guess. But it all kind of ties together with all this stuff that we're talking about here, I think.
It does. It does. That's what got me into it.
And people are like, well, what are you guys talking about this? Well, how does this pertain to Bigfoot? Well, looking at these creatures, like you said, Ron, there's probably different species of these things. They probably have ways to tap into mental capabilities that we as humans don't. I was reading in your book about frequencies and maybe how these things can become cloaked due to these frequencies. Why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Well, everything's frequency, energy, and vibration. That's science. That's Nikola Tesla. That's everything's frequency, energy, and vibration. So if you can change the frequency of anything, you can manipulate this matter if you got the right coherence going on. And I think these things, whatever they are a step into that, and we're there. We have it. And some people are delving into it off and on with remote viewing and different things like that, and it's all happening, and you can't just ignore it. What makes it happen is we have not evolved enough to really make it all happen like some entities can. You're not seeing all that's going on. Our light, our frequency of our eyes can only see within light's frequency. Everything's frequency, and so you're only going to see that. And yet there's so many more frequencies out there that you're not seeing. And the same way with your olfactory sense, you can only smell. A bear can smell 2,100 times better than we can. It can smell through a can, tell you what's in there. Well, it doesn't tell you what's in there. But,
Cool if you could, though.
And you get into sound. We don't hear all the sounds either. Everything's frequency. You don't hear all the frequencies going on. There's a bunch of them going on. So anyway, we live in our three-dimensional environment, and we have to learn how to expand from that, I think, through our consciousness, because consciousness, I don't think, evolved like Darwin says. A lot of things aren't fitting with Darwin's theory now of evolution. And I don't disbelieve in evolution, but something has happened to different primates, including us, during all this stuff going on, I think. So we have been manipulated, makes us into an image of something very special, I think. Light beings.
Oh, yeah.
And if you get into biblical studies, which I've done, you find out that God is in the plural. And a guy named Paul Wallace has a really good, he's a very educated person. He studied this all the way through, and he's got a really good take on how God is plural. And if you read it, and with the words where the word God came from in there, well, you find it's light. God is light, and that's biblical too. Light beings, and that's aliens from another dimension.
Yeah, Ron, I was raised like you, very religious. Yeah, I was raised like you in religion, and now as I've gotten older and gotten into the Bigfoot field, I kind of feel a lot more like you do. People are looking at it. People need to look at it differently. It does correlate. It does relate somehow in a biblical sense. But looking at it, and we know a lot more now. Back then, these physicists that did then, as far as their theories and whatnot. And you're right; they could be not 100% correct in what they're saying. And we just got to keep an open mind to what's out there. Do you think do you think it's a sensory thing with us? If we can just change our sensory mode, are we capable of doing that to see these things, these other dimensions that are out there, these cloaking Bigfoots, these ghosts walking around? Do you think it's possible with what we have?
I don't think you're going to see them with your eyes unless they allow it, unless they drop down into our frequency and get into our visual perception. You won't see them, but that's why people are seeing ghosts. The temperature has to be right, mostly at nighttime, stuff like that. Well, it's where your frequency is in your body at the time too. Sometimes they can match your frequency, and you can they can telepathically say something to you, but you got to be open to it. You got to realize that did that come from something else, or is that coming from something else? So it's just. It's all frequency, and like I say, if you can change the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. But if you've got the coherence right with your heart and your brain. So I forgot your question now. I just keep rambling on here.
I was just saying, do you think are we capable now of tapping into those with what we have here? Yeah. We just haven't figured out how to do it.
Answer is yes, and we have figured out how to do it. It's just people are too lazy to do it.
Okay.
You got to spend some meditation, time in meditation to get your heart-brain coherence. You got to spend time in decalcifying your pineal gland, which is our receptor in our brain. And it's just there's a lot going on that you got to try to work towards getting. And the more you get there, the more you try, the better you'll get.
And you cover that more in depth in the book?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, every day I go by and I find more and more information. So people, when are you going to write your next book? Well, I said, I'm not going to write another book. Well, maybe I will. It took me a long time to get through that quantum book because I wanted to make sure things fit right, and it was right on. And I think I did. I tried to write it in layman's terms, so it didn't confuse me because I'm not a physicist. I'm a
You
scientist.
sound like you are. I would think you were.
I'm a citizen physicist. Let's put it that
Okay.
way.
Yeah.
Just because I've read it, I've researched it. The cat in the box and all that stuff with Schrodinger. And it's interesting how you find what you look for. Even Abraham Lincoln started that out. He said, "You find what you look for." You do. You find what you look for. Well, how does that work? How can you really? There's a lot of things, just a lot of mystery that people want to create. That's really not much of a mystery if you get into the science behind it and learn how to try to work with it and to develop yourself, develop us as humans, how we're supposed to be, and how we're supposed to connect with the oneness that we all are, because there's just one master consciousness that's infiltrated all of us, and yet we think we can't tap into it, but we think we're individuals, but we're really one. And that's how telepathy works. That's how remote viewing works. That's because you can get in your brain, and not your brain, but your consciousness. There's a difference. Consciousness creates the matter, not your brain.
Okay. So many questions rolling through my head as we're talking here. I'm about chapter 4 or 5 into your Quantum Bigfoot book there, and yeah, you do seem like you're a physicist in your own, of what what you're putting down there, and some of it's hard to follow. I got to go back and read a couple pages over just to say, okay, did you grasp what he's saying there? But I can't wait to finish it. It seems like it's going to be very informative.
Yeah, I'm liking it so far.
Brian and I were
I
talking.
wanted to make a difference. That's all, because I'm pushing 80 years old now, and I just want what I think is right, and see if it hooks it with people. If it does, well, maybe they're on the right track, because I'm just not the only one coming out with this stuff. I'm the only one with the Bigfoot background that comes out with it, but a lot of stuff on all over the place that's starting to come out there. Hey, they read my book. Well, no, they've been into it. They're real physicists talking about this stuff. How things work. And anyway, I'm happy to be with you today too, and to talk about it.
Yeah, we're glad you came on for sure. Like I said, there's so much to talk about. I don't know where to go, but as far as your book goes, Brian and I were talking the other day, Brian, if you remember this, and I'm like, we get into this Bigfoot thing, and we start our podcast, and we're talking to different people and hearing different things, and we're more confused now than when we started. I jump on the, like we call the woo side of things, and I'm like, well, Brian, what if aliens are bringing people here and experimenting? They're dropping people. I tend to think that aliens are angels. Are they a representation of the God thing? And maybe they're just bringing creatures here and dropping them as an experiment. Well, let's see what happens if we put this hairy 8-foot tall thing on here that can cloak easily. But let's put these really smart, intelligent human beings that can't do that or haven't tapped into that, and see what happens. I mean, it's just, you don't know where to go. And reading your book has kind of helped me have a better understanding of the woo side of things, of, what is this cloaking thing people are talking about? But when you describe it like you do in your book, it makes a lot of sense and kind of opens some doors and goes, okay, now I can kind of comprehend that a little bit.
Good. Yeah, it's an energy again. If you can get out of the frequency, you're not going to see it in your 3D perception. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist just because you don't see it. But it gets into density. Why trackways disappear? Because a lot of people say, well, the trackway just stopped. Well, I used to throw them out with baby water, just like most researchers still do. Trackways can't disappear. Helicopter picked them up. What happened? But trackways can disappear if the density of this unit that you're watching, this mass, changes its mass to energy only. So I have a theory that maybe they do that through their vocal mechanism, because they have such an expansive vocal mechanism, much more exhaustive than ours. They can make sounds we can't even make, and that's been established now. And just you get into that, and maybe I'm trying to think of why this happened to me and these other guys that were up there. They don't like to talk about it. Some of them passed away now, but I talked to my good friend Bill, who's still in California, and he said, well, it's hard enough to get people to believe that there's a Bigfoot out there, much less believe the stuff that we went through. So he don't talk to anybody about it. And I just talk about it because I think there's a science behind it, and it's quantum physics. That's how they disappear, because they can change their energy, their mass, into energy, and back somehow through frequency. Is there portals? Maybe they create that too with their sound. I don't know. But we should have seen them more often. I only got glimpses of them occasionally. My daughter saw them 3 times, but again, they're only going to be seen when they're in our dimension, our parameters of sight. And if they can do that, then maybe that's why we didn't see them more often, because we sure heard them a lot.
Right. Well, you got a glimpse or two. I read
Yeah,
a quick glimpse of one or two of them jumping from tree to tree or something like that. What does your daughter see?
Well, I didn't see one jumping from tree to tree. I seen it run through the trees, not
Okay.
through the trees, but well, maybe through the trees. I don't know. But it was going down the hill towards the other two that were down there.
Right.
And my daughter, she's seen one standing about maybe 50 yards away, maybe less than that. Well, her and I had hiked into camp. Just her and I were there, and she stood up and turned around. The thing was staring at her. And Sybil wrote or drew a picture of that, and it's in my book, in the back of the book, what
Okay.
she saw. And she's also seen another one a couple times. And she's had other things happen too, but 3 sightings she's had, and she's really just sort of laid back because she's on my side with this strange stuff. Just what's going on? Why are they letting me see them? Well, she's a pretty girl, number one. And number 2, there's all kinds of native lore about these things taking their women. And,
yeah.
So she understands that. So she's had some other things happen again up there. But yeah. Why I didn't see him more often. The only time I saw him was when that one was doing that samurai cry running down behind me over there. Running down to the creek where the other 2 were. A young one, an adolescent, and a mother, we think, 3 that night. And that's when I recorded that, 74. And that's when they were knocking on trees or, pounding rocks, doing things rhythmically, whooping a lot. Got all recorded. And that's when they started yelling at me too and saying something. I don't know what they were saying. To this day, I don't know what they were asking me because it felt like a question. I started mimicking them back because, again, it's an ape in the woods, right? But now it's more than an ape in the woods. I think it's got a human component because you get into what Dr. Curlin studied, that they have a vocal range and a vocal mechanism like that. And they're the human sound experts that's listened to it, which have been a couple now besides Scott Nelson. Scott Nelson said they have a language. Well, according to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University, only humans have the vocal mechanism to create language like I have right now, like we're talking sapient language, which means a morphine stream of words, 10, 12 words that make up a sapient sentence. And you understand that, and wait, if only humans have that, then these things must have a human component to them. So what does that tell you?
Right, exactly.
You get into the dog man, all these things like that. I don't know. I've never seen a dog man or heard them that I know of. And but there's all kinds of crazy things that people are seeing and talking about nowadays. And do we just shove them out? No, I don't, because I think probably, again, my theory is that aliens are here. They've been here for a long time, and they manipulate things. They have the technology to do that. I think we have the technology to do a lot of that stuff, but it's kept under the ground because you can't have free energy nowadays without screwing up the economy and all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Well, after talking about all this, and my whole thought about why is Bigfoot so hard to prove? Why is he so hard to find? But if they have these energies, if they have these frequencies, these ways of hiding better, it kind of solidifies that fact. But do you think that there's government cover up as well? If you don't mind me asking that question, what's your thoughts on that whole stuff?
I firmly believe that. Yes. Yeah, they know about these things. They do know about them. What they are, that's one reason the government really don't want them. They sort of laugh at it. Media does for sure. And the media is controlled pretty much by the government. A lot of it is. So, I think they probably have habituation areas underground. How they get underground is through cave networks, or they can go through changing their energy, change their mass energy, and go right into there. There's a lot of history of cities underground, a lot of pictures of that over in Turkey. There's things happen that this stuff's been exposed all over the world. And they started looking it out and just, wow, it's amazing what has gone on this planet in the thousands, millions of years that it's been here. And some religious circles say, well, it's only been here 6,000 years. Well, Come on, that doesn't make any sense at all. Never has made sense to me.
No.
I wrote an article even before I got into Bigfoot about how, I started reading the first chapter of Genesis. I got the Hebrew translation to Genesis. And you got to get back in the Aramaic, that's that's where it really gets good, because a lot of scriptures have just been changed by the by the government that's in charge of the narrative. Again, I'll say that because it just happens.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
It happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, they control what they think they want you to know.
They want you to read what they want you to believe, right?
Yeah.
So to speak. But yeah, as far as the religious aspect goes, I mean, they talked about Esau in the Bible. I'm sure you know about that, and the Nephilim and all that. And they talk about how the angels came down and mated with humans to create the Nephilim. How do we know that's not aliens? What we call aliens?
Well, it's all the same. It's synonymous. Yeah.
Mixing around. As far as we talked about Dog Man, I was going to ask you that later. Is like, what's your thoughts on that stuff? But like you said, they could be experimenting with a lot of things.
Well, you get into Skinwalker Ranch. I'm sure you guys have heard about Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, yeah.
They can maybe change forms like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't put that out of the question, because it can work. I mean, if you know how to manipulate energy in the matter.
That's scary to know that if Bigfoot can also be a dog man if he wants to be.
Well, if it can be, who knows? That species may not have all that. All the aliens aren't the same either. Some come here for different reasons and different agendas. Excuse me.
Right.
And depend on their agenda. Like the ones up in, in Portlock where I was. There probably was an aggressive one up there, or maybe two. I don't know how many, but years ago when that village was being destroyed, and the people in it anyway. And I think there probably is something up there like that. But I guarantee you, they're probably shooting at it. That'd piss anything off.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
It wouldn't make me pleased.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
And they were destroying the area. I mean, it's destroying. They were overfishing it over. When I flew over in a helicopter, I was looking at all the timber that's just laying around up there. They were cutting it down, and just really that was their territory. They probably been there a whole lot longer than these natives, because it's been.
Yeah, and they probably were overfishing because they had that cannery up there. So.
Oh yeah, well it was now. Well, anyway, we'll see what happens. I think they may be going for a second season. I'm not sure, but.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Well, that's the word, but I don't know.
Ron, what was your favorite?
Have a different attitude. Excuse me.
Ron, what was your favorite expedition you ever went on for Bigfoot, or whatever you were researching at the time?
Well, besides the Sierra camp.
Yeah.
Besides that one. My favorite. I think the one that's real eye-opener was South America. I've been down there twice on 2 expeditions. Just to see if the elongated skulls had anything to do with the sagittal crest that people are reporting up here on a lot of the Bigfoot. But all Bigfoots don't have that. Some of them have rounded heads like we do. So,
are those the Paracas skulls? Is that what they're called?
Yeah. I was down there with Brian Forrester a couple times, 2 different years, and with a science group, and got to study those things. We got to unwrap some mummified ones, and it was really interesting. That was an eye opener.
What's your thoughts on those, Ron?
Well, they're part human, and they're part not. So they don't know they know the mitochondrial DNA, which is from maternal side, and that came from Asia, and how that happened, how'd they get across the ocean out of the world? It was a long time ago, so they knew things. I flew over the Nazca lines, and what makes sense. My thoughts are that well, first of all, they have just a single parietal bone. We have 2, one on each side of our head, separated with a sagittal suture up there, and they don't have that. The Paracas skulls don't have that, and they also had 2 little pinholes in the back of them. I got a exact duplicate of one of those, by the way, that Joe Taylor made for me. He's quite a forensic person, anyways, in a museum in Texas, but. I found there was a crumb trail going up to the Incas warred with the giants, or not giants, but with the Aztecs and the Mayans. And then there's stories of the Mayans and Aztecs warring with giants in the north. And that took me into the Lovelock Caves in Nevada, which I've been there 4 times now, trying to get access to artifacts that was found there in the early 1900s. You can't see that now; it's all been taken away because, again, the narrative is controlled by the government that's in charge of our country.
Of course.
So they, the word is they got them in the Smithsonian, but then we don't have them, so can't see them. But I got a picture of something that came out of there before the Smithsonian took it away. It was in the museum there, and that was quite enlightening. You know, the Paiutes claimed they were red-haired 8-foot giants, cannibalistic, and they drove them into that cave supposedly and set fire to the cave and shot them as they came out.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they didn't get them all. You know.
Yeah. It's possible. Brian and I were talking, you were talking about the cave systems and whatnot. We truly believe that Bigfoot creatures, that's for the most part, that's where they're at. You know, why, you know,
And that's how they move around.
Well, look at Solomon Islands got quite a history of that, you know.
Do they?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, you got to look at that one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's UFOs seen there, UFOs all the time. It's underwater. A lot of stuff's underwater.
Okay.
A lot of species are underwater. Even today, you know, species, different types of species are underwater. I think these things are probably underwater, and UFOs are probably underwater. You know, they can create their own environment. So again, they come out of the water. Even Christopher Columbus saw something come out of the water when he was on his expedition over here.
I actually thought for a short period of time that aliens are actually in the middle. They're down deep in the middle of the earth, and that's where they're coming from, and that's where they're, you know, because people have seen, like you said, they've seen UFOs come up out of the water
and out of mountains. You know,
what's that all about? You know,
what's that? Yeah.
Joe Hauser, my good friend up the Montana Vortex, sees them go inside the Columbia Mountain. He sits there on his porch, and I've seen him. So him and his wife both. They watch it, and you know, there's a vortex there. Now, what's it all about? You know, there's just so many things going on that we just don't quite get our fingers on yet. It's just very interesting, but it's above what we have been taught to believe right now.
Right.
Yeah.
What we're allowed to believe.
Yeah. Well, you can believe anything you want. Just got. It's just the more you study and the more you look into some of the stuff going on now. Who was it? It's Tesla said the day that science begins to study non-physical phenomena, make more progress in one decade than it has in the previous time of its existence. So that's interesting. You just got to look into non-physical phenomena, and there is a lot of phenomena that's non-physical. It's because if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in energy, frequency, and vibration. That's also a Tesla quote.
You got
Max Planck, who was like I say, the Nobel Prize winner for quantum mechanics. He said, "Science will only progress one funeral at a time." Because these guys, they can be scientists, but they're stuck in the Newtonian parameters, and they're going to stay there because that's where they got their funding. That's where they get their funding. Excuse me, for the next project. And that's where their tenure. That's where they're going to lose credibility with their colleagues if they come out with this stuff. They got to stay within those. Excuse me. Unless they're a physicist, and more physicists are chiming in with, like I say, the only thing I got over any other researcher really is I had the experience with this stuff. And most researchers want to call it the woo, want to call it something else because they're still looking for the ape in the woods. Well, no, it's like a species of sentient beings that are out there. They have some abilities that we just are trying to understand now, and I think the way to understand them and how it could possibly happen, understand who we are as humans, because we have not been shortchanged. We're the dominant factor on this earth, we think. I mean, we have dominion on it, supposedly, so we're supposed to be, everybody wonders, well, why aren't they out here building shelters and building homes and stuff like that if they're so smart? Well, it doesn't take intelligence to do that stuff, you know. I mean, there's a step in there. The ones that we dealt with are. And I don't know they're all the same. I don't know if the Patterson Bigfoot is the same as what we were dealing with. We might have been dealing with just something that was just pure alien because it had a language. It was doing things. I seen a UFO up there come, a huge something, big blue ball come down, and we lost it behind the trees when all this stuff was happening. So is there an alien component? I believe there's an alien component to all this stuff going on. Well, Earth is the jewel of the solar system. I mean, it's really It's got everything other planets don't have. It's got water. It's got everything, and it's sought after. I think aliens been coming here for eons, and I think everything we do is important. I got off on that one because I get into consciousness again and how we're.
Yeah.
It all ties together, so that's fine.
It does tie together, and that's what makes me smile about it, because it's so, in my eyes anyway, on mark, and yet you get people, call me woo. I don't care, call me woo. I don't want to put myself in the same boat with Einstein and Tesla and these guys like that, but really they were into this, not the Bigfoot thing, but they were into what I'm talking about with the science that I think answers the questions behind how Bigfoot can disappear. Can he cloak? You call it cloaking. It's just changing your mass to energy and back. And that's how their density changes. And that's why the trackways will stop. And that happened to me. And that's when it really put me over the edge. Okay, now I can believe some of these people that have been telling me this trackways just stopped. Well, my daughter had a sighting, found the trackway. It was deep. I mean, these tracks we couldn't even make a print in. Something real heavy stepped through a bipedal. I started following it. All of a sudden, it just stopped. And I mean, you couldn't see. I looked in the trees, could have jumped to a tree. Excuse me. And, or could have jumped to another boulder somewhere. Where it could go, but it just stopped. So I said, okay. How does that fit? That was in 2012, I think it was, when that happened. And it just density. It's all about density. If their mass changes to energy, they don't have density anymore. It's just not going to make it a track. So the helicopter pick them up. No, they changed energy. They changed frequency via my theory, via frequency, vibration, their vocal mechanism. They have that ability. Just a thought.
Yeah, well, Ron, the thing
makes
about
sense.
you talk about the woo thing again, but you've got ability to back up what you're explaining there, and with your book, a lot of it kind of ties together and can make sense. But I think people have to think outside their minds and their mindsets and outside the box, no matter what. If they're going to have any kind of concept of what people are seeing out there, and thousands of reports are coming out more and more all the time. So, and I was going to ask you if you'd seen any alien activity up there at the campsite, and you'd mentioned that you saw some weird stuff there. What do you think your correlation is with that? And I mean, people see like strobe lights or weird laser lights or lightsaber lights.
Yeah, we had stuff like that going. Well, if you've seen the 411 Pilates film with me in it, the hunted missing.
Yeah.
They did a real good reproduction of that light bar going by us, and I mean, it's just perfect. It just floating come by us. Well, what's that all about?
Right.
We don't do that. You're 8 miles in the wilderness. You're there. Nobody's around, and yet something's around, and something's making that happen. And it's not some little genie over here in a bottle. It's something. It's an energy. It had intelligence by it. It couldn't just go through like that, like it did. And we watched it for quite a while. And you're a little concerned about what it's going to do or what it's all about.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you think these are Bigfoot creatures changing their form into some kind of light form and trying to get closer to see what's going on?
I don't know. They could be, because I've heard some people say that they saw Bigfoot, then it went right into an orb.
Yeah.
And I've seen some orbs up at Joe Hauser's Montana Vortex. He's a good friend of mine, and they have a design in them when you blow them up, because you can get a picture of them, because your light lens on your camera will get more perspective than your eyes will. In other words, you don't see the same parameters that a camera lens will see. So we was flashing pictures out there in the dark, and later you look at them, and there's an orb there, and that orb, you blow it up, and there's a design in it, like it's got something. It's not just a piece of light hanging around or a piece of fuzz off your camera lens. It's something there.
Right.
So anyway, you see that stuff, and it just keeps you moving. I mean, your brain, you really. The first thing I think people got to do is have an open mind. Don't believe everything you've been told. Just get an open mind and understand that there's more going on than what your senses that you were born with here are letting you, and what you've been trained to believe. Because we've all been brought up in Newtonian physics thinking they don't think you can believe is what you see, feel, touch with your hands, but that's just not totally true. It does not explain consciousness. It does not explain telepathy, remote viewing, any of this stuff. I know people that's hired by the FBI for remote viewing. It's a fact. You know, the Russians were doing that too. That's what got us into it. It's just you're able to move your consciousness into another area. And how does that work? Well, it's true. How does it work? Through quantum physics.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to finish that book and
me too.
get more into that. I'll probably read it a couple of times because it's going to take me that long to understand everything.
Well, you won't be the first. I'd read a couple of times myself.
Go back and proof it. Did that sound right? Is that explaining what I'm trying to say?
Well,
here?
you create the reality you're in. If I got anything to say, I think this whole experience here on Earth is about experiences and what we're doing here. I love to say this part, any part of the program, because I think we're here for the experience, but not just the experience, but more importantly, how we respond to the experience. Because if you don't learn something, you're going to have to repeat it. And I get into multiple embodiments a little bit just because I believe if you haven't learned it and something's happened that you want to respond to, you come back and get another chance. So that's going to go against a lot of religions, but it goes with religions too in some spots. But again, not religious. But how I respond to the experience is what's more important than the experience itself.
Mm-hmm.
You respond to everything with compassion and love, you're going to get things better. You're going to get your own frequency higher. You're going to be more telepathic yourself. You're going to be more in line with the universe, because it's how the universe treats us, and that's how we treat the experience with love and compassion. Very important.
Right. Do you think that people that are seeing these creatures have more of an open mind like that to begin with? Do you think Bigfoot can say, hey, this guy's, they can fill people out and say, and I'm going to let this guy see me, or I'm just going to walk across this. I don't care if these people see me or not.
Well, they don't care. I mean, some of them don't care. When they're in our 3D environment, they're subject to our laws of this dimension. So you can shoot them. They eat, they poop, they procreate, they do all that stuff. But the people that get to see them either by accident or they've allowed it, or that's pretty much it. They've either allowed it or it's an accident, like the Patterson.
Caught them off guard.
Yeah. You're not going to walk up on one and be like, I see you, gotcha,
But I think they enjoy this Earth. I think they're here. They learn. I think they learn to live at one with it. They really dislike people cutting trees down. I got to tell you that. And there's a theory.
I believe that.
I got a theory behind that one too. And that Alaska killer Bigfoot's kind of hit on that a little bit, because native lore says they can. And I don't say it, but I've heard people tell me they've seen this happen. They energize in trees, and they need energy to do some of this stuff. That's why our batteries go dead sometimes. Excuse me. Didn't get enough coffee down my throat.
You're fine. I'll cut that all out. You'll sound perfect.
Oh, that's good. I can cough or anything else.
Do whatever you got to do. Fart, I don't care.
No flatulence this morning. Where was I?
The freeze, the trees and the free. Yeah, using the trees as energy or frequency.
Yeah, they say they live in two worlds. A lot of native lore.
I think they do.
Yeah,
what does that mean? They can live in our world, 3 dimensions. Because really, if you come down out of an environment like anything can do, I mean, it's in another environment, they can get into a 3rd dimension if they want to. I think. I mean, it's all my theory again, but there's a lot of energy, different people, different things out there, I should say, different forms. And I think you see them, it's going to scare you. You're going to shoot at it. They don't want to be. Plus, they're not supposed to interfere with our karma. Our karma is we're here to respond to experiences, and they don't want to interfere with that because they want us to respond properly with love and compassion. And when you do that, it's going to help everything throughout everything, everywhere. Because everything's focused, I think, on this planet and all the things that are going on this planet. I think we're in for some real interesting surprise here one of these days before long. I hope I'm around to see that. But I think we're going to be inundated. They're going to expose themselves. The government's going to come out with more and more and let us know more and more. They're only letting us know now what they think we can handle. So there's going to be a big change in our world before too long. And
good. I hope it happens soon.
Yeah, you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, If you're talking about exposure of Bigfoot for one, or the government saying yes, they're real, like they kind of are aliens, I do hope that it happens in my lifetime. Um, but the whole theory and concept of what we're doing today and talking about this, I mean, I guess if that happens, then this wouldn't be as fun anymore. The speculation and the wondering. But people are seeing things out there and they're experiencing these things. You have proof. You have the best vocal recording of any Bigfoot out there, and it's been proven that there's not human language, and they can't figure out what it is. These things just have special skills and different skills than we do. Just a weird question for you. Do you think these things are smart enough? Like, do they know how to start fires? Are they along that kind of line of thinking as well, Ron?
If I wanted to, yeah, sure. I mean, you can do anything if you get the right frequency right.
Yeah.
And get the energy behind it, and it's very possible. But why would they want to? They don't need to.
Yeah, you never know. I just kind of wondered if they had any kind of concept, like on that human side. Are they half human, half ape? Nobody really knows.
We look we're the same thing as what we are, half human, half ape. We're all
that's true.
We're all apes.
That's true.
And I don't know. So much I don't know yet, but I've learned a lot even since I wrote that book, Quantum Bigfoot. I think I say a lot. It just gets deeper and deeper and better and better. It's so fun to think about what's going to happen. We're being inundated by the media nowadays to accept aliens and to accept. I mean, even cartoons for kids. You see aliens in the cartoons. Being and it's just it's fun, and it's a time to be thinking this way. I think because the more you think about how things are supposed to be with love and compassion, that makes your own frequency and your own vibrational level higher, where it's got to get out of this into another dimension. We're all headed for the fifth dimension, I think, through the fourth dimension of time, and that's where you'll see ghosts too in time. It depends on the temperature and the vibrational frequency of what's going on. But yeah, I think a lot of these Bigfoot creatures, I think, they can go into the fifth dimension, and you'll see them cloaking through the fourth, and really, I say cloaking, that's when they're changing their frequency. But they get the high enough frequency, they're into another dimension, the fifth, and then six is where everything really happens. And well, this is all theory, but it's all not my theory. It goes on with a lot of physicists thinking that a lot of speculation. But then there's some people that claim they know, but how do you know they know?
Right. Exactly. Ron, who was? Yeah. So with all the people you've worked with, and it's been everybody, right? I mean, you probably met John Green, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Renee Hendig, or however you say his last name, maybe.
The
Hendon, yeah.
Yeah, I knew him.
I heard he was a character.
He was.
I'm sure you've talked to, and you've been on Finding Bigfoot with Bobo and all those guys. Who are some of your favorite people to work with in this venture that you've had?
I had a lot of fun with Peter Byrne. He's been in Nepal. I went to across Nepal with him on a long trip, and spent a month over there in the jungle and different places, and rode elephants and spent a week on an elephant over there. I mean, just the elephant guide. He stayed in the camp. He'd been on elephants so much. He's fun, and we went down some areas that were really interesting. The other thing, probably the eye-opener thing, would have been that was the fun thing. The eye-opener thing was Peru and Bolivia. Down there, the megalithic structures and the elongated skulls, the unwrapping the mummified remains of.
That's on my list. I want to get down there too.
Well, see Brian Forrester. He takes tours down there now. We met with him years ago. I think it was 13 and 14, the 2 years I went down there.
Okay. And
he led us on both of those. He's a nice guy, and he's very informed. I mean, the guy knows more than the guides you'll ever pick up down there. He knows more about Peru and that area than probably most anybody. He's married to a lady from Lima there, so a nice person. But, and it's his home, Paracas.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to South America, go to Machu Picchu, all that stuff. Check that out. That's really kind of interesting to me.
There's so many places besides that too. I mean, Ollantaytampandu, that's where you get on the train to go to Machu Picchu, and we were in Ollantaytampandu for 2 or 3 days, and there's just a lot of stuff there, megalithic stuff that just if you're with somebody like Brian, he can lead you to it all. That was the most interesting because it really opens your mind up to realizing, okay, something else has been here that knows more than I do. A lot more than I do. No more than anybody does around this planet nowadays. And where else? I spoke at the Darwin Museum in Moscow. Went on to with Dr. Melder and Dr. Benedict into Siberia. That was fun. They treat you like a king over there because they're into the woo. I call it woo. It was interesting.
There's a lot of spots here in the United States that I just want to check out that I haven't been to.
Oh,
yet.
yeah.
I don't need to leave the country,
Well, I just moved into North Carolina. I'm back here now. I bought a home back here and was on the West Coast all my life. So a lot of stuff going on back in this area. I wouldn't believe it.
That's what I've heard. We've been hearing that too.
I didn't know if I was getting away from all this stuff. I got back
you've got more Dogman. Yeah, you got more Dogman kind of stuff going on over there.
No,
I think in the East Coast.
I didn't know the mystery here.
Yeah,
so too.
Yeah. So Ron, do you still get out and go what we call squatching? You go hiking around
not
these
so much
things?
anymore. I had a small tumor removed off my cerebellum about over 4 years ago, and it kind of messed my balance a little bit and my hearing, different things like that. But I sat back and got lazy, and I can still get out, and if I want to, I started walking through the woods here the other day, and it just I don't know. I like to speak at these conferences. I was up in Gatlinburg this last year, and then also in Louisville, I think it was, Kentucky, and there's a huge conventions back here. I mean, they're sold out, thousands of people, not just hundreds, but thousands.
Yeah.
Used to be I'd go to these things and speak to a few hundred people, or maybe 100 people. I spoke to some just 100 people, but now they're in the thousands. And I'm going back to Washington here in a couple of weeks, the convention back there in Kelso, and I'll be speaking back there with David Paulides. That was a fun adventure. Go back into camp in 2018 with him.
Yeah.
But nothing happened. It was very smoky and very horses fire. So we was wondering what was going to happen if that team of horses, mules couldn't come in there and pick us up in a week. We was there all week though, and it was good, fun. So David's a good friend of mine too. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's done great work with that missing 411.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But
yeah, he'll be in Kelso with me. He'll be in Kelso with me and a few others. Dr. Melvin too, in this month. And
lucky.
I'd love to get out there.
I don't mind being there. I just like going there.
Yeah, the traveling's not fun.
Yeah. I know. I talked to Bob Gimlin. He doesn't travel anymore unless he can drive to it. Have somebody drive to it in Washington. He's not going to take an airplane trip anymore. He said, just too much. Yeah. I just had my own airplane. It wasn't a big deal. I could just fly where I wanted to go.
There you go.
I had a lot of money then too.
Well, we'd love to go. Brian and I would love to make it out there, and we will someday to the Kelso show.
To the big ones.
Yeah. We were just at one in Lexington, Kentucky, the Crypticon, and
thousands of people. I was there. Yeah.
Were you at Crypticon?
Well, I spoke there.
Was it Lexington or you said Louisville?
Right? It was Lexington. Excuse me, I made a mistake.
Were you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. I wasn't aware you were there. We were probably so busy setting up our booth, we didn't even.
Oh, you had a booth, yeah.
We were off in that other end.
There's like 5,000 people come through.
Or maybe I thought you were there, then you weren't going to be there or something like that. But then you were there.
I was there. I spoke. I gave my presentation there.
Okay. Well,
and
gosh darn it! Sorry.
I change it each time though. People think, well, I've heard him. Well, they may have heard the sounds before, but I change where it's taken me and what I think. Where I go with it with the quantum now. So I'll be presenting more of that in Kelso.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to talk to you about that today, and we're glad we did. We didn't want to just focus on the Sierra Sounds and the whole thing. I'm sure you've talked about that all your life, and you probably get tired of it, honestly.
Well, it's just, you get jaded with it. It's what you get. Just, you're afraid you just ramble off into what you weren't asked.
Right.
Which I do.
Yeah, I stopped in the North American Bigfoot Center that Cliff Barackman has there, in Oregon. Brian and I work for a company that has some production plants out in Eastern Oregon. I don't know if you know where Pendleton, Oregon is.
Yeah.
Ever been there before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we get the opportunity to go out a couple times a year for work. So we take advantage of that and do some trips out there and maybe go to the coast and whatnot and do what we call some squatching. So we're lucky in that aspect.
Yeah.
But
well, Cliff has a nice museum. I was there this last year.
Yeah.
I seen him for the first time, and I was surprised he don't have any of our. Well, you got my books and CDs there, but he doesn't have any display on what the Sierra Sounds really represent. Cliff's not quite into it, like he's on Meldrum's side with just ape in the woods.
Mhm.
They've never had any experiences with any of this woo-woo stuff until they
Right.
do. My wife's clicking at me. That means don't talk bad about anybody.
We'll cut it out if we do.
Well, I love those guys. They're good people. I've known Cliff for 100 years, like Bobo and all those guys, and even Matt was there at Crypticon. Moneymaker.
Yep.
And he's actually responsible for coining the samurai cry. He heard that
is he?
in 1995, and that sounded like a samurai. And when he opened up the BFRO next year, or that same year, whenever it was, he got that on there, and that's how really Scott Nelson years later got a hold of me. Is through that. He said because he heard some of the other language stuff that was, but I think Matt had on the site bfr.org, and that sounded like a language, and he heard that, and he came all the way out from Missouri, where he was teaching foreign languages at the time, and interviewed me and Al Berry, and got the contacts last week at the sounds, because he thinks he told us his credentials, and I vetted him very well. And the guy's a 2-time graduate of the Foreign Language Institute in Monterey, California. He teaches military people how to find fault in language, how to find deception in language, how to see if it is a language through coding and stuff like that. So the man's extremely qualified. And I mean, what I read on this report I got back from his teacher there, he said if he's a 2-time graduate of this school, he is more than qualified to do what he says he's doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's made a lot of headway on this thing up to get it transcribed. But he's not a Bigfoot person. He'll come right out and tell you that. He's a language person, and this is language by the human definition of language, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
So, but I like Jeff Meldrum. He's a good guy, very honorable person. And they see it differently, but that's okay. We all see things differently, and who's right, who's wrong. It's just, who knows? Time will tell what really.
Eventually, hopefully, we'll all find out.
Yeah. Well, we got to meet.
We might be a different form then.
That's all right.
True, but at least you'll know.
Yeah,
we got to meet Renee and Cliff and Matt at the convention. Bobo wasn't there, but the way we met Matt was we were loading up our truck, and he come running up, hey, can you guys give me a ride across the road there? Da, da, da. And we're like, oh yeah, sure. Hey, come on. I was going to do a selfie with them and stuff, but
that's where I seen you guys at that convention.
Okay. I can't believe we didn't try to meet up with you or talk to you at that point. I apologize for that, Ron, but
that's okay.
Next time we'll look for you for sure. I'm sure there'll be running into you at another one here down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm into doing it, so as long as I don't have to kill myself getting there,
Right.
Yeah. Traveling out there is work. Like I said, we go out for work a couple times a year, and it can beat on you a little bit, especially.
Well, just going through Chicago O'Hare, it'll nail you.
I avoid that.
Yeah, I hate O'Hare.
And I take my wife with me everywhere we go now, because she's a big help. She's a lot younger than me, and that helps a lot. She got all this energy.
Oh, good. All right.
Awesome. Well, Ron, we appreciate you coming on and spending time with us this morning and talking to us.
This has been real fun. Yeah.
Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate it, both of you.
Thank you. Yeah. Definitely going to get through your book, and might have some more questions. Might have to shoot you an email or two just to see what your concept on some things.
Well, if my name is up, absolutely do that. Yeah, it's ronmorehead.com. It's my website. That's how people can get a hold of the books. It's filled through.
Yep.
Download.
You can get it on Amazon.com, Amazon as well.
Yeah, the best way is through my website, though. Amazon takes most of your money.
Does it? Okay. So ronmorehead.com. Gotcha. All right, we got you.
Of course, it goes through them anyway, but they take less.
Okay. So you have your website, ronmorehead.com. You have your CDs.
That's where my CDs are. Downloads. Yeah, if you want the actual hard copy, I don't send those out anymore. I don't have time to be mailing everything, so it's all fulfilled through them. But
Gotcha.
the CDs, if you want a hard copy, they get those through the BigfootStore.com.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I used to be part of that, and they're the only ones that I know that actually mail them out. Or some stores have them, like Cliff Berkman's museum has them. There's some other the museum in Oregon wants to hold them. I got to get back to them. Yeah. When I'm at the conventions, I'll have CDs and books, and I sign books there and all that stuff. So.
Right. And then do you put on your webpage what your next convention you're going to be at?
I
Do you have
should, but I'm lazy.
Yeah, we are too.
I just sort of go with it, and
You're going to be at the big ones probably.
I put it on my Facebook page. Oh yeah, I got another one in June in Mellon Line in Washington. Metal Line, yeah.
Metal Line Falls. Metal Line Falls, yeah.
Yeah, they got me scheduled there for June. But I usually just get it on my Facebook page, which is Ronald J. Morehead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the only place I really post anything is on that. Sometimes I'll put them over on my Quantum Bigfoot page. But I'm lazy about that too. I just looked at that the other day, and there's things I hadn't responded to in months.
Yeah.
I try to respond to everything.
Right.
But I, again, moved out of here and moved out to come here in October, and still haven't got our furniture and stuff from there yet. So.
Do you miss the West, Ron?
Not yet. As soon as we left out of there, it started freezing and snowing and everything else. So.
You got some snow down there too, don't you?
No, not here. Sun's shining.
Really?
It's supposed to be 70 degrees tomorrow here.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I'm on a lake here. We bought a log house on this lake, and it's just really, so far, it's just been incredibly great.
Yeah.
So I love it so far. But what's going to happen? My grandkids are on the West Coast. Well, my son's in Tennessee. He moved to Tennessee right after I moved here with his family. So I do have some family close, but most of them are on the West Coast. So.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of Bigfoot activity going on in Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Carolinas, all that stuff. So you didn't jump from the.
Yeah, you did. No, I kind of knew when I did those conventions back here that there's stuff going on back here. These people are interested in this stuff, and they like my take on it, where it goes with the science behind it, how that funny stuff works. I say funny, it's not. It's just mysterious to them because your brain hasn't been trained to understand it, and until you do, your brain's just going to fill in the holes with woo-woo something. It's not. Right. You don't know. Your brain can only do what it's been taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have a closed mind as well, you're not going to.
Oh, that's the worst thing you can have.
Like you said, you got to have an open mind.
Yeah, if you don't have an open mind, you're doomed to stay where you're at.
For sure.
I think the thing that when I was a kid, I saw the Patterson film. I knew looking at that film that was not fake. That was not somebody in a costume. At a 5-year-old kid or however old I was. And that just kind of locked me in from there. And I always believed, that these creatures are real. And like I said, as Brian and I get more into this, we get more confused. But yet, but talking to you and your concepts on quantum physics and how this all can relate makes a lot of sense. So,
well, you get into, we all got to believe there's aliens out there, and call them fallen angels if you're religious or whatever. But there's aliens here. They've been here. They've been coming in for eons. I think even the Bigfoot creatures that are here, I think they've been bred with the native indigenous tribes, and some of them have become more human than others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they can all talk like ours talked. I don't know that they all have the same attributes because they're just so many things been monkeyed with over the eons, and it just
it makes a lot of sense.
Keep an open mind. Well, it does to me. It makes a lot of sense. And that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. Well, once again, sir, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You guys have a good day.
All right, you too, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
We'll look for you at the conventions.
Yeah.
Yeah. You coming to Kelso?
If I can, I'd like to try.
They're expecting at least a couple thousand there. So.
Oh wow.
That'd be nice. I know the first one I went to there when I lived out that way. I think they had 800 people. That was a big one. It was one of the first ones they had.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people are getting into this now more and more.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I know.
Wow.
I mean, I get emails every day from people and questions every day. And the more of these things I can do, then the more questions I get, which I like because it's what I do. It's all I do now. I'm not in business anymore. I don't do anything but Bigfoot stuff. So it's interesting to respond to people, and I try to respond to everybody if I don't miss it or if it doesn't fall through the cracks. But still waiting on my PC. I'm on a laptop here now. Waiting on my PC to get here, which got all my information on it. Still in transit somewhere.
Yeah. It takes time, unfortunately. All right. Well, you have a good day, sir.
Oh, yeah, we won't keep you any longer. So
we'd
thank
like
you
to get-
again.
Yeah.
You guys have a good weekend.
We can talk to you again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Bye.
See ya.
That was awesome.